Hi, I'm Pat Halpin, and welcome to Meet the Leaders. We're here at our state's capital, Albany, and today is opening day for the state legislature. We've been joined by New York State Assemblyman Andrew Raia, who represents Suffolk County.
Yep, the 12th Assembly District, Babylon, Islip, and Huntington.
And Huntington. So you've got those that western corner of Suffolk County. Assemblyman, this is a different year because the Democrats have a majority in the state Senate. And it's not a small majority, it's a pretty big majority, 38 members. And you have got a Democratic governor, a Democratic majority in the state assembly. As one of the ranking members of the Republicans in the state assembly, what do you make of that? How is this going to be different? How do you see your role? And I see you've got a number of elephants on your tie. As a Republican,
it's good luck. It's just good luck.
No, as part of the loyal opposition.
Sure. Well, this is my 17th session. I was here.
That's session.
Yeah, so 17 years.
So it's times 17 years?
17 years.
17 years, okay.
And I was here when we had one-party rule in New York State, and it didn't work out very well. Right. I assume the Senate Democrats have learned their lesson from back in 2010 or whenever it was.
It was a disaster.
Yeah, and so time will tell. But you already have fractures between both the Senate Democrats and the Assembly Democrats with the governor. You got the Speaker of the Assembly calling the governor a liar. So, there was an old expression. There was an old Republican chairman that used to say, Democrats don't beat Republicans, Republicans beat Republicans. And hopefully that's not the case here with Democrats beating up on each other.
Because that would not be good for government.
And it's not good for government. And we have a lot of very important issues that we need to talk about.
So let's talk about some of them that are top on your agenda.
So the ranking member on the Health Committee, obviously we're going to be talking about single-payer health care. It's something that I agree with the governor. That's a good talking point and something that should be discussed, but I don't think $200 billion investment in the first year, potentially bankrupting the state, but more importantly, taking those people. We lost 45,000 people from New York last year. That's a big blow to our tax base. We're going to lose a congressional seat. We're going to, which hurts us with federal funding. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, but they can pick up and leave in many instances.
So tell me, the state has already expanded Medicaid,
correct,
which is the federal state program, expansively. So a lot of people have gotten signed up for health care through that expansion and the Affordable Care Act.
You got 20 million people in New York State roughly, and you're talking about 800 to 900,000 people that don't have insurance. Well,
so why aren't we just focused on figuring out how to do a better job to cut down on that number, which the state has already made progress.
Correct,
on.
And I have the solution.
Which is?
You probably, when you were serving years ago, you had something called Family Health Plus, which basically allowed everybody to buy into the Medicaid system.
Yes.
So on a sliding scale. So people up to making $125,000 a year could actually buy into the Medicaid system and pay more than somebody that doesn't make that kind of money. It was very effective, but part of the problem was under the Affordable Health Care Act, we had to eliminate that program. That's now been changed. There's no reason why we don't bring that back, make sure those 700, 800,000 people are insured, and we're done.
It's interesting that you should say that because I heard Bill Clinton a couple of years ago say the mistake that the Democrats made with the Affordable Care Act is that they should have expanded the Medicaid program to cover the very people
100%.
You're talking about that. Because you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, because
Correct.
that's already existing program.
Yeah, and I hope, I've had conversations with the governor's office about it, and it's something we should be doing. The governor is in a bind here. He's on the record saying he opposes this, so he needs to put something forward that actually solves the problem, and I think that solves the problem.
Well, another part to that, I heard something that the Democrats, again, in the House and the Senate, and I'm talking about it in Washington, should have allowed people to buy into Medicare
Sure.
for people who are, say, over 55.
Correct.
So there are ways to use the existing framework without blowing it up.
Right, and you help prop up the system. You inject more money into it.
All right, so that's a brilliant idea.
Right.
I'm going to give you the credit
Thank
for
you.
it.
Well, I
It
won't take
happens.
credit for it. It's a plan that's out there, and sometimes dusting off the old goodies is a good way to go.
So maybe they should just rename the dog.
Sure.
It's the same dog.
Right.
It's the same idea.
That's it.
All right, so what about, especially the state passed medical marijuana?
Correct.
It seems like we're on the cusp of legalizing recreational marijuana. What are your thoughts about
Well, you have 10 states that have legalized recreational marijuana. 9 of those 10 states did it via referendum. Let the voters decide. Vermont was the only state that did it on their own. Small state, more liberal, some would say socialist, so they can get away with that. But when you look at the polls, I've yet to see a poll in New York State over 52% favorable for legalizing marijuana. That's a pretty slim majority. So I think it should be on the ballot and let the voters decide. I certainly would vote to give the voters the right to decide whether or not we want to do this, because there are a lot of negative consequences that come as a result of this. Suffolk County, where we both live, has the highest rate of DWI in the state, and in the tops in the country. So we're going to do something else that's going to add to that. We need to think about some of these things. And some people say, well, nobody's ever overdosed from marijuana. Well, they may not have overdosed from ingesting the drug, but you ingest the drug, an edible, a half an hour later it kicks in and you're behind the wheel of a car, and now you potentially just killed somebody.
A dangerous combination.
Correct.
That's
So we need to be very careful how we move forward on this. Is it good to raise the revenue? Sure. When you have, New Jersey and Massachusetts all legalizing it, we should, look at it. The good things that they did, the bad things that they did, and learn.
So, assuming that there isn't a referendum, you're going to have some say, or at least to be able to raise those issues, those concerns.
Sure, it will be thoroughly debated in committee.
It'll be in the health committee, it will be in the codes committee.
Correct.
I'm trying to think, it'll probably be in small business
Sure,
committee.
Ways and Means. Right.
Because you're talking about taxes.
Right. So it's going to be debated, but I'm a big fan of initiative and referendum. I think on issues like this, the voters should, have skin in the game and make the decision. Casino gambling, we did it with casino gambling. So how is this any different? There's positive and negative aspects to casino gambling, and there'll be positive and negative aspects to this. And in those instances, I think the voters have a right to decide.
Okay, we only have a minute left. You mentioned that you represent various parts of Suffolk County. You have at least one new senator. It sounds to me like you
Sure.
might have two. You go into Islip with Monica Martinez.
Yeah, I don't overlap with Monica, but we're right next door to each other. Jim Gorin has been a friend of mine for
So
years.
I was going to ask you, so how do you see that relationship? Because I think back to my days as Assemblyman. My best friend legislatively was my Senator Owen Johnson, Republican,
Sure.
conservative, and all that, and we worked closely together because we had a common district, we had common concerns.
Jimmy has already taken some of my bills, and we'll be introducing them in the Senate. And me, I'm not proud. I'll find a majority member in the Assembly, and we'll make new law. I've always gotten along with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, particularly from Long Island, because we're not Democrats or Republicans. We're Long Islanders, and if we don't stick together, we're going to get hammered by New York City and some of the other interests.
So we'll end on this note. As they said back during the American Revolution, we either hang together or hang separately.
There you go.
Okay, Assemblyman.
Always good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Likewise.
Have a great year. Thanks for being
Pat.
with us. That's going to do it for Meet the Leaders in Albany. I'm Pat Halpern. We'll see you again soon.